The process of understanding is very simple. The process is, as I explained last time, I explained more in detail. We are created out of the rays within the center of the universe. In interaction and reduction in strength and division by the strength in certain strength fields, in collection of the totality of the expansion of the universe, some energies, some dynamic fields have come together. Over billions of years, these fields lead to the creation of what we call the sun. Where the plasma gathers together. The same process repeats again because the sun is the same as the energy center of the universe. Now, the heavier, the larger amount of the energy which is collected in this span of the universe, called the sun, that irradiates out, does the same thing again. Radiates its fields out, and in interaction with the itself, with the fields of itself, leads to creation of planet. In that process of the creation of planet, the same process happens again. In the interaction of the fields of the earth with its environment and cooling and exchange with the strength of the other things in the environment of the space of the solar system, leads to creation of man, cell, matter state. And that itself, in coming together and slowing down in certain ways, as we call, leads to another sun. We call the soul of the man. This is the truth about the life and creation of the man. But if the soul of the man can understand and absorb and be correct with his conduct, he can become the strength of the fields and carry the strength of the field of the planet which came to his creation. And if the soul can understand with the same process, can interact, can be correct, can absorb with itself the totality of the strength of what it needs, it shall become the sun. And then the same soul has the energy that it can absorb within the solar system, within the galaxy, shall become the center of the universe. Earth, we call it the rain, come from and goes back to. In the solar system, we call it planetary system. We come from the rays, we become the planet, and we go back to the mother. The same thing happens with the galaxies. with the solar systems which they get absorbed back in and they chewed up back into the universe. The life, the process of existence in the universe is the same. It doesn't matter on what exchange and what extent. So, what is the man fighting for? Why do we fight for something which has come from the point of the creation, and in the process it goes back to the creation? The soul of the man, as the energy of the earth, gives the face of the man, the face of the earth, and that process is the same for the soul of the man. Our soul, in reduction in strength, in interaction with the emotion of the field of the environment, leads to manifestation of the existence of the man. But once it's completed, does it need the face? Or can it be and becomes free from it, what we call the soul of the man, be free and detached from its existence? Our soul is part of the process of the creation. The key to one question, who man shall be in the future, to be answered. As we saw the sun became the earth, and as we saw the earth became man's soul, what would be the destiny of the soul of the man now becomes free at the point of departure from physicality? Would it become the sun for creation of another life, or many lives, or correction of lives? This shall be, and this is how it happens. When you create a soul which is not correct, which is misconduct by itself cannot give, you lead to the creation of this next cycle of creation, which has started the wrong way, the wrong strength. This is one thing the man has never understood. You become the creator of another universe, another cycle. And this is what you have to judge within the structure of the soul of the man. What would I like that cycle to be? In the physical life, we create children. In the dimension of the life of the soul of the man, what that soul will create. If man has thought up to now, that's it, my end, my point, when I die is finished, there's as much fallacy that when the sun is destroyed in any shape or form, there shall be nothing left. But we know the parts of the sun becomes part of the galaxy and becomes part of new life. So shall be the soul of the man. The judgment of the man has to be according to what he sees the future his soul can conduct to be. The day of judgment is for the man, not in front of the Creator. That what my soul judges to be and what shall create. Man never understood and shall never understand till can solve this dilemma within itself. The reality is very, very, very real. And that is, as we've seen, the energy of the galaxy become the sun, the energy of the sun has become the earth, and the energy of the earth has become the soul of the man. So shall be the soul of the man, which is the energy itself, another cycle of life. How can you change when you don't understand? How can you change the process of understanding if you do not understand the process of the creation? Do we need to extend the understanding of the man that what is the future he brings? We care about our children, what education they get, what they wear, how happy they'll be, where they sleep. Now the man has to be careful and consider, what life shall my soul create? Because those are the children of your soul. As we see, the rays of the sun has become a planet and 7 billion children of it. 7 billion unlimited, which is growing. So the soul of the man will go through the same process. How many billions and subdivisions and sub-matter state of the physicality of the man your soul shall create? Would it be the soul of wars and conflict and forever killing? Or would it be the soul of this, let's say, solar system, which is peaceful? This is the truth and the reality about the soul of the man. First of all, as I said many times recently, we never understood that the soul of the man is within the structure of the man. And now that we understood, we understand on departure from the physicality of the man, the same process will carry on as it did for a star, a planet. And the soul of the man becomes another energy source, a higher order, which itself leads to the creation. It becomes the star, it becomes the center of a new cycle of creation. This is what the human race has to understand. The cycle actually starts from the point of death and not finishes at the point of death. In so many ways, if one understands, is as the dusts, specks of dust came together to make the earth in the solar system, so has the specks of the atoms has come to be the creator of the man. And the essence of the creation of the specks of dust on the solar system has led to the creation of the man. So shall be the fields from the soul of the man which lead to creation of another cycle of life. What kind of life man would like to have to be created by the soul? This is the day of judgment. This is what man never understood. Now you have to understand. You have no choice. Up to today you were not aware of it. From today you are aware of it. You are responsible for it. Your conduct has to be to elevate your soul. That in elevating the soul, what you become the creator of stands correct in the conduct of the citizens. We don't fairy tale. This is the truth about it. As you've seen, the process does not stop with one sun. The cycle carries on. It's very interesting in how humanity now knows in fact to handle the fact. It'll take decades for man to understand, and then you understand those who become the tools of war, the tools of conflict. They have nothing to start with. They have to become the dust in the solar systems of the others till the day they learn more, as they cannot create a new cycle through their own soul. This is the elevation of the soul of the man. To be part of the creation of a beautiful life for the next cycle. When you don't have it, you have to become another cell in the body of the structure of the bigger, for you to be just there that you can done when you could have been the soul of the man. They say, do not create fear. I give you point of love, procreation. If you cared about your children on this planet to have the best, your true children come out of your own soul in the coming time. How would you like to educate them? How would you like to be when you are in conflict with yourself and the cause of so much mayhem? This is the truth, and the man will take a long time to understand, as now that we understand the soul of the man is the operator for the creation of the future extent of the life of the man. Whatever is gathered by the soul at the end becomes his point of reference of his own creation, of his own dimension. But the strangest thing is, what he creates from the soul shall become the creator of the other souls. This is the beauty about the creation, and one understands it, understands no limitation.
Welcome everyone to the 280th Knowledge Seekers Workshop for Thursday, June 13th, 2019. This is a presentation of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute and part of the public teachings in English. I'm one of your hosts today, Rick Cremond, and along with Flint Mulhausen. And of course, we will be directed with Mr. Keshe in this workshop of the Keshe Foundation, and I believe he's ready to go for yet another Knowledge Seekers Workshop, number 280 today, Mr. Keshe.
Yes. Good morning to you, good day, as usual, wherever and whenever you listen to this series of Knowledge Seekers. It is interesting how we are gathering momentum towards one direction or another. And as you said, 280 of cycle of teachings. How far we can go and how deep we understand more is, just as I said, the knowledge we gain up to now is a scratch on the surface of the knowledge of the universe. Would we gather enough to become strong enough to be able to understand what is to come? How we will come to understand our own strength, the strength of our knowledge, the strength of our what we call soul. Can we join a new dimension in understanding of it in our physical structure or in the structure of the soul of the man? In the past few weeks, we have concentrated heavy on certain things, main part of our work, which is towards peace. And some of you might understand sooner or later why we are so rigorously following this path. As you know, we saw some 3-4 weeks ago a possibility of massive war starting, which would have had no end. Because those of you who are familiar with geological position of Iran and Russia, next door neighbor, and then the China next door to it, and the security of the oil fields in Iran, in the Persian Gulf, this was becoming a volatile point. And in a way, many of our work, many openness of the humanity work has led us to where we are. Today is a significant, it's amazingly significant for a lot of us to understand. Today is the 13th, which usually it brings a end to things. Things are bad, they end up. And we see that as the end of the wars. Today, 13th of June, is the end of, beginning of the end of the wars, because today we have the Chinese, what do you call it, the Japanese Prime Minister in Tehran negotiating for peace with the Iranians on behalf of the Americans, because Americans realized them fighting had no corners, them fighting had no reasons, and many, many nations have turned back. The administration had to understand the end of wars has come, because this was the last war that anybody got together to do. As I said in the teaching last night, the European who gave hand to Americans to borrow money to make themselves bankrupt with the wars, they have literally walked against the wall. There is no nation supporting it. America was left on its own, and these kind of activities takes a lot of financial reserves and capital, which America does not have, as they're taxing their nations heavily to pay for the death of the pastime. It is not easy, it will not be easy, but today is the end of what we promised, end of wars. We will see announcement out of Tehran within the next few hours, in the next 48 hours. We are putting hands of art for collaboration with the Chinese, what we call work we are done, and to the Americans that we want peace. We expect negotiations to end up with peace. And with it, we have offered in writing to the American administration the opening of the Iranian space technology to the American government. This is a huge move. This means that we share the space technology of Iran in parallel with the Americans on an open basis. As long as all the sanctions are removed, Iran stands as a proud nation, and America gains some of its dignity back. In this process, we share the technology with the government of Russia and China in making a new, what we call, consortium or group of space development nations of Iran, China, Russia, and United States of America. This is an olive branch. This is a gift for peace. The offer has been submitted to the American administration in writing, and we know what is the outcome out of Tehran. On a positive outcome out of Tehran, American administration, American scientists can expect access to the latest technology in the space program. We have committed ourselves to this, and we deliver personally to the American administration, and fully aware of the offer. This means we have opened the peace program to the American administration. This means that the age of science technology, which the Americans wanted to achieve and gain through aggression, by coming to peace, will be gifted to them as a gift by a friend, by a nation who has the technology. This is the reward, this is the return, and this is the totality of what we have offered. Can you hear me? Am I clear?
Yes, you're clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So in that process, depending on what the Prime Minister of Japan returns and the negotiation completes in next coming times, in American administration, understanding the peace has a dividend, the dividend this time is a scientific level. As in our communicate to the American administration, knowledge in exchange for peace, and we will transfer the totality of the knowledge to the American scientists in one way or another, or as a joint collaboration between the 4 countries. This will allow us to open the space. In the direct communication to the American administration, we have clearly stated our terms, and they are fully aware that the financial position the Keshe Foundation has been put in by certain nations for space development, which is theirs, we are just developing the knowledge and technology, is very simple. They came to gain through war in understanding that it is not achievable. In the past times, we used to punish. This time we share that if somebody wants something, we'll look for it one way or another to create condition to get it. This situation would have carried on, which means the Americans would have found another excuse, breaking another condition, creating another mayhem, another excuse to get to Iran to get the technology. We are sharing the technology that there is no further excuse for these kind of behaviors, as the span of universe is so big that there is not enough man on this planet to support our excursion. There is a situation which I've explained in the recent past, and there is a situation which will come further on. As I said in the past, when we achieve this kind of movement, achieve this kind of peace processes, the leftover wars, like in Palestine, in Syria, in Yemen, they all will end in a few months, shortly after, maybe even sooner, as the American government needs to concentrate on paying its debts, paying what is committed itself financially before. On the other hand, there is going to be a further burden on these nations. What this means, many of the nations will not need military forces. We will see a massive reduction in military forces around the world as everything steps down. You have to understand that with the new space technology, Iranian flights will land in Los Angeles in few minutes, and the American flights will land from Washington in Isfahan within few minutes. We have overcome the borders, so we will see the wars will have no meaning, and military forces will be dissolved. As I explained in one of the teachings yesterday, this will put a huge burden on governments. How we handle millions, just about 1 billion unemployment that this condition will create. When you have nothing to fight, no borders to protect, as there is no one is there to threat, as we've seen in EU, there is no need for armies. What are we going to do? We have 2 choices: to put and close most of the military camps and put the soldiers on the, what we call, street, or change the hardware and retrain soldiers to become builders of the nations. If your nation is so well developed, you can develop the next door neighbor, because still there is not no next door neighbor, is part of you. This will create a lot of transition
Hello, Mr. Keshe.
Hear me?
We heard this will create a lot of transition or a lot of something.
Yes, it will create a lot of transitional problem that the governments need to go through. The the unemployment, the what we call change of a skill, all will come with it. And this is one of the uh, positions that this peace dividend will create. How we're going to handle it, how the nations will handle it, is something to be seen. How we are moving so many soldiers which are sitting in different countries and nations to be moved back to home is another problem. We'll see a huge problem with American forces in South Korea. We see huge problem with the Japanese forces, what they call American forces in Japan. All these need to be reassigned, needs to be redone, needs to be reprocessed, and at the same time needs to be understood that how we're going to help the United States of America to reposition some hundreds of thousands of forces back to United States. Or, as it's been tradition, as you all know, majority of the men of space in NASA program are military. Would we put all the military people of different nations to become people of the frontiers of opening up the space for mankind? In so many ways, in space we don't need to pay them wages. And in space we don't need to give them any hardware to fight. We make a group of scientists out of soldiers who in the process of work, learning, will bring more to us and allow us as human race to develop new skills. We don't need protections in space. So the new technology, the new sciences will bring us an amazing position that allows all of us to become as one family and put all the what we call military people, all the scientists together to open the space. We have to find a new occupation. Some will go into production of new industries. The technology will offer new. Some of the new technologies we offer will create its own unemployment through the making the old technologies obsolete. The transition is very hard. The transition will be extremely hard for many nations to go through. But how we're going to transfer and translate this is another headache which is sitting on the horizon. Would the governments will go through understanding of the process that collectively they have to achieve peace and collectively they have to find a solution for all these men of military we have armed over centuries. It's become a habit of a man to kill. It's become a habit of man to make soldiers, to defend imaginary lines for somebody's pride to be a leader, to be a king, to be head of something without asking the others. In so many ways, today we see the end of wars, the beginning of peace. We see that mankind, as I said before, has killed so much, especially in the last century, that it has literally got tired of killing. Mankind has run out of energy to kill, and we've seen it. Europeans, who were always leading in invading and colonizing, have given up. Americans had to do it on their own, and they cannot pull. They cannot even pull 1,500 soldiers to bring. It's not there, it's committed somewhere else. And in a way, it's an embarrassment for a government who wants to invade, does not have the forces, but it has committed itself so much into it. It is a position that our forefathers have been dreaming about. Getting to the point that we run out of energy to fight. In a way, we have run out of finances to fight. Because now the fighting is inside the nations. People fighting their politicians to give them better life. Politicians are too busy trying to keep their nations happy that they don't have time to buy arms and do other things, even in the name of the armies. We have reached a point of maturity, and the last remnants of the wars, what we see, 2 or 3 of them, they will finish. Then it comes the process of contemplation in how, as a race, we will make, facilitate, and develop technologies and sciences which can help all of us, not just some of us. In this process, as I said, we've seen our friends with the old machinery are offering a trip to space for 30 days for $56 million. I think the new organization of the Joint Space Programs, we will be interested in $56 to give the millions to the others. Because the space technology of today does not have fuel to burn, does not have the expenses which goes through, and at the same time has the power and the beauty to create food and life in the space. You know, in the Roman time, if you lived in Italy, the Italians tell you, Italians in Roman time used to bear children, boys, that they could send them to become part of the Roman Empire army. Because when you had a son in the army, you got food. They would pay you as you gave a son for the nation. Now that we send our children into space, we don't need to worry about paying them or paying you, because in the space there is no food to buy as we give everything. And on this planet we make the life satisfactory for the rest. That if anybody wants to have more children to go to space, he knows that children in space are safe. We will not have hungry people in space. We will not have people who fight in space. I wonder if mankind even will carry a gun in space. And to what extent we mature in the next coming weeks, it'll be a surprise for all of us. How would our governments react to the position of no war? I'm sure the Japanese Prime Minister has a lot to say in that position at the moment in Tehran. He has a lot to explain the guarantees that the Americans will give will be upheld and it will not be broken as before. There are some trusts, some bridges which needs to be built. There is a need for a lot of understanding by both sides. I pray for the soul of Japanese Prime Minister, that through his soul, in meeting with Eminence Ayatollah Khamenei Iran and His Excellency President Rouhani, they come to a point to accept not the defeat by the American military, but a point of being proud that we have managed to bring peace on this planet through the power of knowledge and technology, and not through killing. You got to understand something very simple, which if you're not involved in politics and diplomacy, is very hard to contemplate. When a major power sends an envoy for peace talks, and they know that if a nation has managed to stop the ships and bring so many planes down, could have done the same in the land of the same nation. Which means Iran could have taken this technology and literally practice it, deliver it in the United States, in cities and major capitals. But they didn't do. The Iranians did not show the power of their knowledge and technology by harming, as is the tradition of Iran. We defend ourselves out of strength. And this should be a hit to a lot of nations in the coming time. Having the power, having the knowledge should bring us to be more peaceful and not more arrogant. And I hope, and this is my biggest wish, as we have suggested, 2nd of August will be the time when President Trump will visit Tehran. The offer is on the table, the offer has been made to the American administration. And in so many ways, we have made a move. Knowledge, science, and technology for peace on behalf of the humanity to the governments of this planet. Many of you, when I gave the key away to the governments, went crazy with me. Wrote me everything you liked, that you betrayed us. You gave the technology to the Americans and the others, to the governments, they will never share it with us. And then we brought technology, we gave it to you lot for past 3 or 4 years. Governments didn't do anything with it for years. Then you lot just managed to make a few magravs and the others. And in that process, we now come to the point that you knowledge seekers have to do the reverse, which is very simply, you have to work with your nations, to your governments, to transfer the knowledge to your government. What it means, you have to transfer the knowledge which you gain to your government. We gave the keys to administration. We gave the knowledge to knowledge seekers. We allowed the knowledge to be shared directly between nations, nationals, governments equally. So what this brings to you is that now is your responsibility, now that we achieved world peace and the cornerstones of it is set in Tehran today. This was my wish, and we have achieved it. You will hear what will come out of Tehran. A little bit of rhetoric in the next few days. Some people don't like to say we did this, the other likes to say we won, and both sides have to be the winner, otherwise they can't stand in front of the nation. Iran has a huge problem to sell to the nation. The Americans, who they have called the Satans and the biggest enemy for past 40 years, America has had a huge problem selling to his nation. These people we called, what we call terrorists, now they are here as tourists and they are bringing knowledge to us. You have to understand there's going to be a lot of selling to happen. The Iranians have to sell to the soul of the religion. The Americans have to sell to the soul of money. And Somehow the two have to find a compromise. Somehow it's not going to be an easy trip, but somehow the trip, the ticket has been bought. The journey has started as of yesterday by landing of the Prime Minister of Japan in Tehran. We have given all our supports to both sides, and we carry on giving our supports to both sides. It is the responsibility of both sides to find a way to change the way. The Iranian officials know how to do it. They've done it many times before.
Hello, Mr. Keshe. Hello, we're not hearing you, Mr. Keshe, yet. Still waiting to hear you, Mr. Keshe. Not sure if you can hear us. Okay, well, bear with us for a minute while the connection comes through. Hello, Mr. Keshe? Not hearing you yet. I can hear some sort of connection trying to be made there, but not a voice connection. Sorry, still can't hear you, Mr. Keshe. Okay, you can hear me, I see. Well, I'll just simply let you know when we can hear you then.
Hello, I'm back.
Yes, yes, hello.
I think a lot of people don't like about what we are there, what we are doing, but it's good for them. They have to change a lot of things. And peace is very hard, when you've been trying to fight for such a long time. Finding somebody to blame. In any case, in any way, as I said, we are talking directly to the American administration, trying to find a way to bring America into the 21st century space program, as they got stuck in 20th century in 1960s, and they're still there. They're still trying to get to Mars and Moon in a very different way than the rest of us that we know the new technologies allows. And in this process, we we are we are hoping that the news out of Tehran will be good enough for all of us that mankind will take a new steps in the direction of peace. And um, as I said, it's not easy. A lot of things has to be chewed up in the next 3 4 weeks by a lot of people, and a lot of concessions needs to be given, to be taken. And in so many ways, the peace dividend will be for all of us. Mankind has reached a point of what I call no return from wars. Do not want any more wars. And collectively, as a human race, we will see new evolution. We will see a new dimension, uh, as Europeans are not in the war game anymore because they can't feed their nations. And everybody doesn't want to go to war because it's too good the way they're getting paid by the governments, the social services, social securities, and the rest of it. And when the time is good, why should we go to war? And we see it with the other countries. There will be some skirmishes maybe between India and China, but that will be again very little bit, and we will see the resolution of a lot of problems around the world. As next 2 years, we have a huge problem with what we call unemployment through military forces, and we have to, with the new technology, to replace it. We have to create huge amount of jobs, and hopefully by end of this month, Keshe Foundation will make some announcement in that direction to start the process. Those of you who live in China might get the news before the others, and those of you who live in the United States might get some more news from that side. Um, we are going through the progress to change to complete, and hopefully in the coming days we'll give you some good news that it'll change, it'll bring a lot of changes for all of us and not for some of us. In trying to achieve peace, as we say, we're going to have the governments will have many soldiers. They have to find new ways and new things for. The same thing comes back to us as Keshe Foundation, as all that we have to deliver the promise of peace, the technology. What we promised, we have to fulfill. All of us, doesn't matter, you start different companies, different technologies, different aspects, research. We need to step up to cover and to bring about the new industrial revolution. We have to be able to deliver now that we have achieved. It's no use winning an election when you cannot deliver what you promised during the election. And this comes back to all of us. We came here, many of you wished, many of you delivered, many of you went through the process of understanding the technology to benefit by it one way or another, financially, maybe some other ways. And now, in the next coming months and weeks, we have to deliver. It's not time of the talk anymore. Keshe Foundation, you're supporters of the new technology. You all need to be ready to deliver what you wish for. How do we bring this technology to be understood? How we bring this technology to be mastered? How we bring this technology to become the frontier of sciences in next years to come. The same as the government is not going to be all tomorrow. It's going to take time. We have time to build it. We have time to gain it. And we have the opportunity to be able to create the condition. Hopefully, in the coming days, we will increase the teachings, live teachings, in the coming months to follow up teaching people, teaching the new technology. And those of you who are very close to the foundation work, you know what is to come, what is about to come. And we all need to be ready for what is to hit us. We pushed, we did, we made ganses, we changed humanity. Now your wish was peace. Now to hold on to peace, you have to create the condition of peace and hold on to it. We have to deliver in every front, be it from the space side, be it from the energy side, be it from agriculture, be it on every front, which we said we won the election, we have achieved peace. Now, collectively, we have to deliver that we guarantee nations security, food, warmth, energy. And thanks to what I call beautiful Tesla, he has managed to get mankind to do the job for today. What does this mean? As you know, one of the problems most of you knowledge seekers have is that you have not realized a massive critical point. None of you knowledge seekers have understood one of the cornerstone principles of the technology. And this has become a mayhem for a lot of you. What does this mean? Today's teaching is trying to sort out the, as we say in English, boots from the chaff. What it means is we have to understand what is involved. A lot of you have worked but never understood, and a lot of you have understood some of it but you could not connect. Let me explain to you what I'm trying to say, and then we take it further. You have to look at something which is very important. In our technology, in the teachings, we have continuously referred to two levels of ganses. Matter state gans. Can you hear me, Rick?
Yes.
Okay. We have a matter state gans and we have an energy state gans. These have to be understood. And many of you have not come to the level to understand that the matter energy gans leads to the condition of life. Cu, zinc, CH3.
Mr. Keshe, we're not getting your screen sharing coming through yet.
Very strange. I can see it. You can't see it?
No, it's black at this end. Maybe try it again, just to reshare the screen sharing.
Share the screen share. I stop. I go out. I do everything. Oh, I can leave the meeting. They want me to leave the meeting. I better leave and come back in. Okay. To reduce the load, we have come in different way. The screen comes through another channel, is not on the same channel. Can you see it?
Not yet. Something's changing. Okay, we get the usual black screen now, and we're waiting for it to go into the white.
There's a lot of complication, a lot of governments sitting on the watch.
Still black at this point.
Yeah, are you sure you're on the right channel? Because I'm using two different lines. One says still waiting to share a screen, and on mine I see already shared.
Okay, then maybe you need...
I tell you what I'm gonna do. Just wait 1 second.
You
I
probably
shut down and restart the computer. Anyway, what I was trying to explain is that most of you have not separated the two sides of the science, the technology. What does this mean? As I said, the technology has two sides. This technology has the universal part, it has a light part, and it has a matter part. In the matter part, which is the life of the man, you use CuO, zinc oxide, and everything else, and then you try to get the small energy from the matter part to create lift and motion. What does this mean? Is that the knowledge seekers have to understand the total process and not part of the process. And a lot of people go between one or the other, or they mix it together. And this is part of why you do not achieve, or you cannot achieve many of the things you set out to do. I've seen people trying to work between the two. Can you see this, the screen share now?
No, we can't.
Very strange. The screen share is not coming through. Do you see my both
Flint,
lines on?
we see both lines in the panelists list. Flint mentions when you see your whiteboard on both of your devices, that's when we can see your share.
I have shared.
Can you see the whiteboard in both of your devices?
Yes, yes, both times.
Huh.
I see it my screen, and it comes up, it writes. If I go on the participants, I see all the participants.
Well, how about I set up a whiteboard and you can mark on
Okay.
it if you can see it.
Okay, do it that way. I moved.
There we
Oh,
go.
I'm back. Is
that's
that yours or mine?
that's Flint's screen, so he's done that just as I was saying.
I think you better do it, Rick, than Flint. Can you go back and switch it over?
Can't you work with?
If we need anything. Okay, Flint, can you switch off and can you come on, because you have an Apple, he doesn't have an Apple. I cannot work.
Oh, possibly. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
It should all work, but maybe not.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't give you that. I don't know. Okay, now we can. Can you see me now?
Just a second here, and I think that should be correct. Yes. You can see
Can you
the
see the right thing?
markings. Yeah.
Okay, so we worked. There is something wrong with the program. Okay, so what I was talking about is that the ganses we work with is the ganses which we use for matter state, what we call the um, life, or the ganses which we use for energy. And many knowledge seekers have not understood the difference between the use of these two. In medical application, in food application, we use usually these. In energy application, in a space movement application, we use this. I've seen some people are trying to cross line. This is very difficult. You remember the universe transition matter state. When you work in the Ganser state, which is here, sometimes it's not so easy to go back that way, unless you know how to play the game. But if you are on this stage, you can come down and you can make the matter state is easier. In this process, you release energy. Majority of time in this process, you gain energy. CO2, CO2, ZNO. If we look, these are all alkaline or gravitational. These are all acidic or energy giving. In the coming time, those of you who work with these systems, especially with maglev systems, especially with a dynamic system, energy or lift, you have to understand what you set your systems for. Many of you, when you make your coils and you cover it with CO and the rest, many of you, when you make your coils and you cover it with these kind of things, you get different results. You got to understand that a hydrogen a deuterium and a tritium have different needs, and they can be used in a specific way for gravitational or magnetical too. And the energy release from these can lead to the creation of these. From plasma, we can create matter. We can create energy of the matter. We can create the condition of energy of the matter. With the bigger elements, we have problem to achieve this kind of things. Those of you who go towards the understanding of the motion and travel in the space, you have to understand a further knowledge. I have explained this in the past few days, and I try because I see problems and I try to solve a problem before, but now we are ready for it as we have to get man into a space. If you look at it in a matter state, the gravitational field forces are tight to keep a molecule in its position. Strong and tight to keep an atomic structure into molecular structure. To keep so many atoms or so many electrons or protons and whatever together. But if you look at the structure of the planetary system, solar system, the energies are very weak, extremely weak. There is a star there, a galaxy here, another force of universe there, billions and billions of kilometers away. The field has had many battles on its way with other fields to get to us. Tantalizingly weak, tantalizingly beautiful to play. What this means, for the reverse technology of the universe, mankind has to learn to fly. You do not need strong field forces. To create matter and hold on to, even as GANs, you need strong fields in the location where you are. And if the knowledge seekers understand this, man will become man of the space in a few seconds. The mistake made by most of us knowledge seekers, they're still in a camel bird story. They think they are in a rocket propulsion, but they want to work with advanced technology. Fill it up, pack it in, do what you like. Sorry, there is no star so close with this power. We are deadlocked. This is where I've seen for a long time knowledge seekers play. Doesn't work this, I put gans of CO2, I put zinc in, I put this in, I put that in. If you look at the Chinese flight system, we have not used anything but these three. In your medical system, yes, you have to use CU blah blah to be the light on site. In space technology, you have to understand what you are doing. And this is the problem with which has been sitting around the foundation for some times. And I always thought one day when they are ready to go to space, I explain it. It's no use mixing this with this and expecting something miracle. Because all it is energy conversion. You hit a high energy to a solid body, you get it. If you know how to take the energy out, you might create a few volts. As the English said, horses for courses. The sooner our knowledge seekers understand this criteria and connection and conversion between it, then we are in a very smooth way to take off flights. If you look at the condition of this planet, you have the energies which come. And in the process, with the energy of the, what we call inertia of the copper, they change into copper. And if the gravitational magnetic field of zinc is there, they change to zinc. These are energy packs. These are inertia packs. Depending on the gravitational magnetic field of the structure, you dictate in that reaction at this point what is created. So gravitational magnetic field of the Earth, in conjunction with the energy which enters the Earth through what we call plasma fields of hydrogen, dictates in that point what is to be made. Very few elements on this planet are made out of volcanic eruptions or other things. The rest of the materials on this planet have entered this planet this way, become part of this planet this way. Because if there was an iron and something else and the balance energy was zinc, it's the field which come in now creates zinc. If there was an eruption and everything else that creates the condition of the field transfer, what we call heat, then it could be a copper. If you understand this and understand the completion of the work, that in the direction of the energy field forces transfer, at a weak field, somewhere we might find the match for planet Zeus. And somewhere we might find the match for the moon. It's very faint compared to the magnets which we hold in hand in the matter state. We have to start measuring these. At the same time, we have to know in what strength our planet is giving to the moon. What is the return factor? What is strength? You are weaker in the magnetical at the point of arrival. You are stronger at the gravitational of the point where magnetical has come in. Because by law of plasma, the stronger feeds the weaker, and the stronger feeds the weaker. Is the matter state of the planet at the weaker state compared to the moon, which the moon can affect it. At the same time, Earth creates the same pressure to give, because now it's gravitational stronger for the moon to receive. If we understand this principle, if the knowledge seekers and the men of space understand this principle, you will all understand you don't need to burn any fuel. All you need to do in interaction of the fields in your system, if you can create a friction enough or distance gap energy strength enough to be of this strength. Hello? The source. What it might be. Because as I receive it, I know this always have the same reflection back, but on the weak of the strongest strength to feed, and voila, I'm on the sailing boat of the universe magnetic field. In matter state, we measure the strength of the wind. In plasma state, we measure the strength of the magnetic field in the line of connection. Then we can fly. Don't forget, if you understood this, something becomes very apparent and very clear, is that if this is your system and this is planet Zeus, if you are stronger, you are pushed away. If you are weaker, you are pulled in. And all you need is the system inside. What am I going to produce? A stronger fields or weaker fields? A stronger fields for me to become the giver and get pulled in, or weaker field that is the reverse. In the coming time, mankind will have and build systems which measure these fields, and then you can enter. When you have the planet Earth, the position of the planet Earth is not decided so much by the sun, but by billions and billions of weaker fields in the solar system, and some in the galaxy, and some in the universe. We are a closed shell, but at the same time, the condition of outside determines and affects our work. In understanding this, then many of you as knowledge seekers have to step forward and understand what happens when you put the two together. Can you convert, or do I just create a barrier? And those of you who have matured to this knowledge, then you can start playing a lot of games. Our game in Keshe Foundation is this. Because this we cannot find everywhere in the universe. The operation of the brain and the soul of the man is at this level. That is why you don't have no blood, no hemoglobin, no metals, nothing. And in a coming time, when the mankind learns a little bit more about knowledge of his own brain, you will find out, as we say, even though some of the gravitational magnetic fields of the elements can manifest themselves to be in the strength of the zinc or magnesium or whatever, essentially all the layers of the brain of the man which control the soul of the man are made of different strength plasmatic fields of what we call neutron. If it's hard for you to understand, it's very simple to explain. If you get a drop of oil and you put it in the water and start heavily rotate it, shake it, brush it, whatever you do with it, you will see the white form, the thickening. And If you understand the process of the receipt of energy by the brain of the man, in conjunction with the speed of the rotation of the fields of the body of the man, and even in the womb of the mother, will create that stirring. And in so many ways, if you understand this, then you understand how brain cells are created. You have to understand, if you go back in the very early teachings, part of the teachings even recently I referred to, when you have an egg and a sperm coming together, where they make the third, in balanced energy they're trying, they absorb energy from the environment of the womb of the mother. These guys are extremely dynamic. They're, they're a machine at the highest speed rotation. So in that process, they stir up a very nice white foam called the brain of the man. And in so many ways, through the energy of the blood vessels outside the boundary, they are controlled and they're dictated. If you understand this and take the knowledge a step further, it is very easy that it'll be essentially unthinkable, but if you understand it, very practical, to build brains, control systems on the same basis for the spaceships of the future. In a way, you build a new communication system to fit the space technology you have built. Even though it will talk to you, it'll have a feeling like you and everything else, except the physical condition of arms and legs. And it essentially will hold its own soul. Then you understand how the communication, the interaction, the existence of the physicality and the soul of the man, space travel and energy and food, interconnected. Then it has become easier for you to start developing this technology that the mankind can make the space of universe. You've all been looking for a control system for your flight systems. It was easy. We call it in the English language a minus. And the minus of brain of the man is made out of the combination of the strength of the hydrogen. That in interaction with each other, they mimic the strength of the physical body, what they are connected to. Then making system controls which are beyond the speed of light according to the need of the system, for the first time you understand has become possible. But this time you cannot make the minus by putting something to stir it. You have to create a mayonnaise which is created out of the interaction of the fields of the universe, which does not need oil, but it needs conversion of the energy, which we call it the soul of the man. Then you understand in a simple language that, let's say, the sun is the soul of this solar system, and you see no carbon, no zinc, and whatever in it, but in the interaction of the fields of internal dimension and structure creates fields that in its strength at some point will convert in its shell to copper or zinc, according to the point of the arrival. Then now you understand how the next generation of wireless communication systems, what you call computers, are achievable. Mankind has to move in the next step. Mankind has to start moving to understand the totality of the structure. As I said, mankind has moved towards peace. We have to give man something to be busy with that understands now he can make a condition, the new systems of wireless zero time communication, like a brain of the man, as you have. There is no wires in there, but everything communicates. But then you have to understand the strength of the fields, what mixture is put into there, how you allow it to be there. Can my flight system feel its environment? Can the flight system have an emotion? Understand that it's traveling amongst life in a space without physicality, and like you, that you don't like to step on the ants because they are a being, will avoid them because it feels their strength. Now, for the first time, we have released this knowledge. But it will take mankind sometimes to understand it, because now that we have made clear the separation between the control and physicality, now we have to understand the motion which can be controlled through the dimension of the same. Otherwise, you cannot control your systems. If you use flight system which are copper in it, and you enter in a zone which is strong, and in so many ways can dilute the energy of the copper, you lost your spaceship, you are falling into the skies, in the open span of the universe. But if you understand the structure of the work of the universe in the dimension of material and matter state, which is again connected to the structure of the hydrogen as one cell complete, what you call deuterium, then you hold on to physicality of the direction and dimension. These are the new technologies which mankind has no choice but to understand. With the teaching of today, if those of you who understood, we have taught you how to bake in a way a system, a control manner, the same as the brain of the man, without need any wiring, by gravitational magnetic field positioning, by dimension of the thoughts, by dimension of the emotion. When there is a need in the environmental energy dimension, then we will see what the control system will release. It's exactly like the way your brain releases so much enzymes because you've eaten this food, it releases so much things because you're in temperature and everything else. Now, if you understood how to build the structure of the control or the brain of the system, which is not necessarily tangible but exists, then mankind has entered the next dimension of knowledge of the universe. And it'll be very interesting to see how many of you very rapidly will convert to this process. And if you understood this process, then you could create the same. Travel from here to moon is seconds. Travel from here to the other dimension of the galaxies is zero time. Because when you're on the winds of the universe in the direction of their motion, you become their passengers at the speed that they go. The beauty with this travel is its frictionless. There are no friction. Because the magnetic fields do not reach the matter state strength unless you reach the point of destination. Today, in past few minutes, I have told you what the mankind has been yearning to understand for years and centuries. It'll take you some time to digest it. It'll take you some time to understand it and replicate it. But in essence, the basic knowledge of the existence is here and exists. And in different strength has different colors to the eye of the observer. But if you remember something very simple in all the teachings, and that was how you compact is how you are observed. And don't forget, all elements in plasma technology are gravitational magnetically positioned. Then you understand why even the brain of the man has different colors. How compact they are gives them different color. And why do they become compact? And what's the purpose of suddenly changing? Because of the compactness, because of the energy pack, because of what you have put in there according to the field strength of the conversion. And if you understand these, how to make it, how to do it, how it's done, then you can do a lot of things. Controlling massive pests, controlling massive conditions, but you have to understand the process of their life. You have to understand the process of the emotion. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Keshe. And once again, I'll remind the attendees, you can put your virtual hand up so we can recognize you. And I see our panelist, Krasmir, has his hand up here. So go ahead, Krasmir, with your question.
Thank you, Rick. Hello, Mr. Keshe. Hello, everyone. I'm just trying to understand something that you explained in the beginning of the workshop, that you said there are two sides of the technology, one being the universal and the other one being the matter one. And you compare the matter one with the copper and zinc that we use, and the energy one, compare it to the hydrogen and deuterium. So would that mean that now the direction of the technology would be towards the interaction between the hydrogen, deuterium, tritium with the other gases that we've been familiar with?
We always promoted and we always explained in that direction. It's just that there has been a confusion and it had to be made clear. Some people did not understand it, and it's caused massive mayhem. They mix things and they take things and they convert things, and they put CH3 somewhere and they put CH2 somewhere. But if in general you understand the two separate parts of the energy and matter, then you understand we're talking about magnetic field energy positioning. We are not talking about the energy as we can convert it to usable energy, that we can electrocute something or rectify something. That's another dimension of the conversion. And in so many ways, at the point of the conversion, you get what we call the pulse, the heart.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? You see now, I have divided you knowledge seekers in three clear categories. Matter state category, energy state category, and control category. And soon you have to understand all three, or you start from one and see how you get to that.
Okay, Mr. Keshe, there's a question in the Q&A. Maybe we can sort of combine it, because we also ran into this in the plasma reactor group, and it's a common thing, this idea of there's kind of a duality, like you've shown and just explained, between the matter level states and the plasma level states, let's say. So the question from Stephen is, and maybe we can sort of combine this, is what I'm thinking. How can we help the Twinity souls to find a balance? Are they able to find peace by understanding they have twin souls? Are these twin souls of physicality within one physicality? So I'm just comparing that question, which could be taken on a personal basis and, you know, individual people.
What do we call a twin soul? Define it. After all these teachings, somebody has to define it. Somebody should be able to define it. What is the twin soul? What we call a twin soul, be it the soul of another being, be it the soul of a stone, whatever, is that an entity, a plasma condition, which gives me everything I need, that I do not need to look somewhere else, or most of my needs, and I give to it what it needs, or most of its needs. Then, when you can get and receive everything, you do not need to go shopping, do you? And that's what is the definition of twin soul. It means when you're a twin soul, it means I receive all the pleasures, all what I need from that soul. And then it comes that how truthful are we with the others which we live in the dimension of physicality. And this is one of the problems with this process. When you call somebody a twin soul, it means it gives me everything I need. It facilitates everything I need. I don't need to get anything else from anybody else. Oh, I do a little bit, because you cannot be all connected, but let's say majority of what I need I receive. And then it reaches a point that something in the structure can change because we are not all the same. And then literally slowly the twin souls fields become strings and detached and separated and gradually go to another one, and then we have access to many souls. And a twin soul, that's all the meaning it has. Somebody, something could be a twin star, could be a soul of a being, could be soul of entity. As long as it can give most of what we need and receive most of what we give, we receive from it and we give, so we tied up. Is what it's virtually one shop, one customer. Whatever you need, I have, and whatever I want to sell, you take. And a few other customers, because you know they're out there, but your main customer. And that's what they call a twin soul. And twin soul is not limited to humanity. It's not limited to solar systems, and it's not limited to universes. And in that dimension, is not limited even to the Creator. In the Old Testaments, in all the stories, we talk about Adam and Eve. Adam is the giver of what Eve needs, and Eve is what Adam needs. But overall, they are part of another totality, or within the totality of the existence, what they have created, they have to be part. So we have a twin soul according to the dimension of the need and the position of interaction.
Okay, thank you. There's a question from Joel. You had mentioned earlier that it's time for us to deliver. So Joel says, "Good morning, Mr. Keshe. When you say that we must deliver, do you mean that you allow us to facilitate meetings or conferences to disseminate the technology?"
Of course, that's your obligation. We've had meetings with many scientists in the past, recent past and past years. And we find scientists who are looking for an answer, and in technology they find their answers. And we find scientists who, by finding the answer, shows their ignorance of the totality of knowledge, they have to object it. But in common, 99% of the population are there to learn, to help themselves, and if you can translate the knowledge to the need of the man, you can do a lot of things. You have to understand what they need, not what you want to teach. What is the need of tonight? Last Thursday, I gave nearly 5 or 6 hours of teaching to the Iranian agricultural teams. Tonight again, we have highlighted the problems in Iran agriculture, so maybe another marathon session tonight will go through, because there are things which needs to be done. I see a problem, I try to solve the problem, not just because it's just Iran, because it's a critical position. It's extremely critical. You have to understand. I can send you, maybe, because I cannot share videos, but maybe I can forward a video that you can see what Iran at this moment is entangled with. Um, if I can get my hands on it, I can transfer it to Rick, because Rick can share it. In Iran, we have a drastic agricultural situations. Okay, let me do it a different way. If you can play it, Rick, I have to send it to you. When you see this, it's the obligation of every man to find a way to solve this. And we're trying to solve many problems like this at the moment with different parts and different.
I think your microphone cut off there, Mr. Keshe. Hello, Mr. Keshe. Can't hear you currently. Hello, Mr. Keshe. Well, bear with us for a minute here while we reconnect. Still waiting for Mr. Keshe to connect. See your hand up there, Dean, and you can speak when there's an opportunity that comes up here. See, Stephen, you have your hand up as well. Allow you to speak.
Hello,
Mr.
can you
Keshe?
hear me? I'm
Yes.
back. Can you hear me? Yeah, I was
Yes.
trying to send you a video and it just got broken up. The bandwidth wasn't there to carry it.
Mm-hmm.
What we have a problem is we have to teach as much as we can and to spread the knowledge. It's not anymore us, we know as knowledge seekers. It has to become part of the knowledge of the nations, as part of one nation, one vote. And we'll see how we can develop it. Teach as much as you can.
Keshe?
Yes, I can hear you, a very weak voice.
Can you hear me now?
Hello? Yes,
Hello?
who's speaking?
That's better. Good. Thank you.
Who's speaking?
Hello, it's Dean here.
From?
I wrote a little something actually. I was going to say hello. I'm a man named Dean from a race
From where?
from the UK.
Ah, okay. Yes?
I was going to ask you a question. Just recently, I've been feeling a lot of energy through my hands. That energy I feel. I actually went and listened to one of Rick's teachings last night, and I only listened to a small part of it. And there was a guy, a French chap, talking about his magrav that he had. Now, I just thought about that magrav and connected with it for a short period of time. And there was a conversation going on that the magrav was giving out pulses, a heartbeat. But it obviously, they were saying that it didn't give out a very strong heartbeat in the evening. But as soon as I connected to that magrav with my hands tingled from my fingertips right up to, well, down to the bottom of my fingers and slightly in the middle of my palm of my hand. But I was getting pulses of 2 or 3 pulses per second, and quite strong as well. Now I found that this all started when I gave from my soul to the China spacecraft that you constructed. And it seems to be getting bigger and bigger, and I just need to talk to you about that really.
What happened, this pulse system is something which we know about, and we do a lot of work around it. We've done a lot of work around it. And pulse is the cornerstone of life in the universe. A plasma cannot work without a pulse. And a pulse is created at a point of the balance between the magnetic and gravitational field point of strength. In a way, when you jump from gravitational to magnetic, and in that process, one contracts and one pulse expands. One pulse phase is gravitational and one pulse phase is magnetic. And the Earth has a pulse, our body has a pulse. And the rate of the pulse shows the more or less the size of the activity. And in so many ways, it's a balance between the soul of the physicality and soul of the, what you call, soul of the man, where each one has his own pulses. We developed this technology no motion. Without a pulse, there is no plasma.
Mr. Keshe, we lost part of a sentence there. You said we
Without
developed
a
the
pulse,
technology.
we developed a technology to create pulses. Pulse is a cornerstone of life in plasma. When you have a man which is made of combination of plasmas we call gases, the collective change between the polarity becomes the heartbeat of the man. And you can look at the pulse two ways. One is to release plasma because when it reverses, it squeezes the fields to radiate, or when it reverses, it sucks in. A pulse in reality is like a pump. You suck it, you let it go, you suck. And every time you suck in, you need to let it go, otherwise you cannot suck in because you're already full. And in reality, is the heartbeat of the physicality, which is our blood circulation, that creates or forces the soul of the man to radiate at the level that in the brain of the man, in the interaction of the two, leads to creation of emotion. One triggers, and in response to the trigger, it creates a new condition. If you understood before, as we explained, the blood vessels around the brain they carry the energy, but this carries a pulse energy, which pressurizes in a way the plasma of the soul of the man. And that causes the soul to release, and the interaction to a given point creates the emotion. The inward pulse pushes the fields. The outward pulse takes the balance we call emotion back through the blood, and in conjunction to the physicality of the man. This is something which I was explaining. I can't remember where. I think it's once in the teaching to somebody very recently. Is that you have the brain of the man, and you have the nervous system, and then you have the blood. I have to do it in different colors, then you understand. At a point where the blood vessels, information gained through the brain from all the cells, in interaction with the nerves, lead to creation of the cell, conversion of the lymph to the matter state of GANS itself. So here at this strength, with this blood coming in, with the presence of the lymph, it makes the cells of the heart. At this level, with the strength of the two, with a given signal coming each one separate, makes the cells of the liver and kidney to become. The lymph is a common denominator to totality of the physical body. It's the difference or the voltage balance between the two which decides what lymph becomes what element at what point, and how often all these change, because the information sits here. If mankind didn't have the lymph, we'll have no dimension of physicality to make. So we eat and we make everything into lymph. We transfer energy to the stomach, and then it's there. It's like a flour. You want to make a cake out of it, here I make cake from it. Depending on what temperature and what ingredient I put in. The information from the soul comes through the neural system. The information from the soul of physicality comes through the blood, and voila, you have that cell. You can take the kidney out because there's a blood cells in that position which has brought it in. The kidney, you can create a condition to develop and it'll be there. This is how we develop the brain cells in Burned or Destroyed. Then we tune into the heartbeat and the soul beat, and the heartbeat and the soul beat at a given point of strength lead to creation of certain strength cells. That's why when we get old, we don't produce stronger cells, because the physical dimension fails, not the soul. If you look at the blood circulation of the man, you have one which brings what they call the red blood cells or fresh blood, and one is the one that use blood. But you ask the physicians, how do they jump from one to the other? The same thing happens in the dimension of the physicality and the conversion of the lymph back to matter, or back to blood cells that it can be taken out. It is very, very interesting if mankind understands how its physical body works. If you look the process of the limbs, the neural system, and the blood system, the blood circulation, and you understand this, what I just explained, then you understand how simple energies convert the matter to what it is, if it's coming in to be added, or is taken out by a different one. And this is how man has to learn in a space to replenish stock, replenish energy levels in the spaceship. The body of the man, the working of the body of the man, now that we understand, if you understood and you can repeat it, because the whole universe works the same, then you understand how suddenly out of nowhere stars are created, and suddenly out of nowhere stars disappear or become part of. We call it, whatever you call it, that they change. But in fact, that's what it is. A certain strength field converts the matter or energy as a lymph to the matter state of the cancel itself through the high level energy, and the other one, which is slightly different, is what takes out. It's very interesting. If you ask a lot of men of medicine, they tell you, can you go in the Wikipedia and you bring out the blood circulation of the man, and why doesn't what they call oxygenated blood circulation doesn't mix with unoxidated blood circulation? But if the body of the man is making always red blood cells and is making red blood cells for both systems, why do we carry in some the energy or the material of what we want, and some in energy material which we want to get rid of? Just on the same principle. And if you understand this process of the working of the body of the man, it'll be very, very easy for you to make gravitational systems. And very easy to make magnetical systems. It's the same blood cell. And how come when it gets mixed up and passes the what do you call it? The lung, when it gets energized, it changes its characteristics. There are a lot of things that scientists have not managed to explain. They just tell us it's there.
Mr. Keshe, I was listening to some music last night, and I came across some Aboriginal Australian music, and I listened to it intensely, and the not pulse, but my hands were just glowing. I don't mean as in light, I just mean they were alive with just a force. And it was a deep connection. And I've never listened to it before, but as soon as I did, they just.
So you got excited with the music. It touches your soul, as we call it.
It must have.
Yeah, it's something that we understand as part of our emotion, what we deliver through the blood circulation.
I don't actually have a Magrav at home. I mean, I've done various different, built various different things along the way. I say built, constructed, out of copper and things, and some ganses and stuff like that. But I don't actually have a Magrav, and yet as soon as I see a Magrav and I can think about it, I can tend to connect to it. I don't know why, but I just
you got the copper field, as they call it, not the magician copper field, huh? Copper field means you connect the copper strength field of these systems. We have to learn. We are all unique in so many ways, and we are not all the same. Thank you very much, Rick. Can we go to John in Australia if he's ready for his teaching today, his section?
Sure.
To Jim, if we can go to Jim, please.
Yes. Jim, are you there?
Yes, Rick. Hi, Mr. Keshe.
Hi, we have kept you awake enough?
No, it's with all the
Just
daylight.
early evening.
It's only 7:30.
Yeah. Okay, we enjoyed you last week, your teachings. If we can have the second part and get enlightened, please.
All right, I will try.
Thank you very much.
Try share. Does that come through, Rick?
Yes, perfect.
Talking to Lisa, she said the best part is coming this time. Last time was just hard work.
Well, this is the interesting part.
Yeah.
It can either be very interesting or sort of go on the scrap heap of try again.
Okay, let's see which way we go.
Okay. All right. So tonight's presentation is a continuation of last week, but looking at it from a different angle. And what we're looking at is sort of field interactions within the plant tissue. And I'm using the method of circular chromatography to do that. So I'll go through the process. So last week we had a look at the benefits of using the GANS and how it increased the nutritional value of the plant and also the shelf life. And so I was trying to find out and work on methods to try and show another way visually of the effects of using the GANS on the produce, because as we said, if you pick up one apple or one banana that's been grown with the GANS and the other one that hasn't, on the surface they might look the same, but internally there's a big difference. So I had come across the circular chromatography, which was invented by Einfried Pfeiffer, he'd originally developed this method to evaluate the life in soils. And this was almost 80, 90 years ago. So it was a quick way to determine the health of any soils. So in the soils, they were assessing for the humus, the minerals, the microbiology, and more. And most of the work done with this analysis was on soils. Very little was done on plant material. And so this analysis is not an exact science, but rather an interpretation by the observer. So the purpose of the chromatography was to allow the separation of the different organic components that make up the plant matter or the soil. And it looks at the separation of the layers from the center to the outside on a filter paper, and it's using the silver nitrate. So I'll go through the process that we had done. But what we had looked at was comparing the daikon radish, which we had shown last week, that had been grown with the plasma. And the only way we could do a comparison was to purchase some daikon radish from another grower. And then we had also done some of these chromatographies on the daikon radish, which we had just grown in the environment without any addition of GANs. And then I'd done another set of experiments on our cos lettuce, which was grown with the plasma. And then again, I purchased another cos lettuce from the shops just as a comparison, just to create a visual comparison. So those were the three experiments that we had done. Now, the way we prepared was we needed 0.5 grams of silver nitrate mixed in 100 mils of distilled water. Now, with that solution, we had used a circular filter paper, and then we just cut a little square of it and rolled it up, so that became a little wick. And then we just created a little hole in the center of the circuit of the filter paper, and then put the wick through, and then we just let this sit in the solution of silver nitrate, and through the capillary action, the liquid gets absorbed, and we did it to a radius of 4 centimeters. We then removed the wick and then allowed the paper to dry. So that was the basis preparation for the filter paper. Now we got to look at processing the plant material, and with that, we used 0.5 gram of caustic, NaOH, in 500 mils of distilled water. And we mixed that with 50 grams of the plant material, and then we just use a stick blender to mix it all up. And the picture shows the nice green mix after mixing. And then we let that solution with the caustic sit for 1 hour. Now we then start creating the chromos. So we then take that solution. So we've got our filter paper, which has been impregnated with a silver nitrate. And then we put a new wick in. And then we basically pour some of that solution, plant solution, and we allow that to wick up into the filter paper, as shown there on that picture. And you just allow it to wick, and it can take quite long. Some of them took 30 minutes to reach sort of that 4 centimeter radius. So you need a lot of patience for this one. And then what we do is, once that's over, we remove the wick, and then you hang that filter paper up in sort of indirect sunlight and allow it to dry. And this can take several days, and it's quite fascinating to watch how the images change over this time as it's been exposed to the light. And then your chromos are basically ready for analysis and interpretation. So, as I said, there's a lot of information on the chromas and using on the soils, but I battled to find much information with plant analysis. And then I sort of realized that what I need to rather do is to rather look at analyzing what I have, but through the understanding of the plasma science and what we've been taught over the last couple of years. And so the first thing when I saw that how the method they'd used and the method was that with a little bit of caustic solution, immediately brings me back to how we use the caustic solution to create our nano layers and essentially opening up the layers on our copper. And from there onwards, we put it into another salt solution, which opens it up further and we create our GANs. So the method that we had understood, that we've been taught over the last couple of years, is essentially the method that they had used a year ago by using the caustic solution, is to try and open up the plant material and see what's there, or open up the soils and see what's in there. So I had to look at these pictures that we created and try and analyze them from the plasma point of view. So when I looked at the first one, what I have to try and understand is when we look at the center of our filter paper and the images that it's produced, we essentially have a stronger gravitational, weaker magnetic field in the center. And then on the very outside, we have stronger magnetical and weaker gravitational. So the center zone would show the higher maggrav strength of our different elements or minerals. The middle zone would show the proteins, vitamins, amino acids. And then the outer zone would essentially show, for me, the integrity and overall health and vitality of the plant. Another way to look at these is to look at them as different zones of similar magnetic gravitational fields. So you've got the center zone there, which is the red, and then there's a different color with the yellow, and then the blue ring showing another zone and different layers. So each one of these would be sort of different layers or zones of magnetic gravitational field strengths. And we see this in nature all the time with the cross-section of a tree trunk, and also a microscopic image of the root of an orchid plant showing the different rings and different magnetic field strengths within the structure of that root. So that was my approach in analyzing these images. So the first one we did was our plasma radish that we had grown with GANs, and comparing that one to the shop radish that we had purchased. Okay, so these two images, the one on the left is the shop radish, and the one on the right is the plasma radish. I will go into a bit more detail on these images. So this is just after that solution had been sitting in the caustic for 1 hour. This is just a close-up image of the shop radish there. You can just see a lot of the different layers, interactions there. And here's a close-up image of the plasma radish. And then just some other clarification of some of the markings on the filter paper is this very outer ring, sort of the gray line there. This indicates where the silver nitrate solution had wicked to, so we ignore that in our analysis. The area then, sort of the lighter brown area on the filter paper, is where that's the color the silver nitrate goes just with a normal exposure to the light. And then we start getting the darker ring. This is the outer edge of the plant solution. So it's only from that edge inwards is what we really start analyzing. So when I look at analyzing, I'm looking at the shop radish, which is on the left, and I just put the plasma radish as a visual comparison between the two. So when we look at the shop radish, we can see that we've got that sort of central white zone. We have got a blue circle there. And then we're followed by another bigger zone with a lot of sort of forked patterns. And these forks seem to be penetrating another layer, which is sort of a lighter brown. And to me, it's sort of showing the sort of gravitational magnetic field interplay between these two areas, how that whiter creamy zone with the forks is sort of interacting with the lighter brown area. Then we have a third zone, which is sort of the bigger blue circle. It's the darker brown. As I said, you can see that these white forks, their magnetic field strength is interacting with the field strength of sort of the brown areas. So we get an interplay there. And then we get the real outer edge where we sort of reach a balance point. So those are sort of the pictures that one can pick up from the shop radish. And then all I've done here is the reverse. So I analyze the plasma on the left, and I'm just showing the shop radish for visual comparison. So on the plasma radish, we have it's overall a very different picture. One would assume that they are not of the same plant variety when we analyze them. But here again, on the plasma radish, in the real inner zone there, we have the white zone. And then the next zone, which is sort of the next blue circle there, there we get the same white-brown mix, but it's formed its own sort of unique zone. Now, when we compare that white-brown mix to the shop radish on the white, we can see that this is that white sort of brown zone has extended quite far into the outer edges of the shop radish there, and intermixing with sort of the brown and orange layers. Whereas on the plasma radish, it's maintained, it's very strong, small, and maintained its structure. Then we get different patterns coming in from that next zone. To me, they're very well defined, holding their shape, and also interacting into the light orange and the red zones there. And then we have really clearly distinct sort of orange and red zones. And then the outer boundaries is also very well defined. And it also shows sort of an inner and outer zone on that boundary. So we have a very different pattern and structure that's created between the plasma radish and just a normal radish. What we sort of observe is that we have a lot more distinct layers, very defined layers on the plasma radish, which for me indicates stronger areas of field strength. Both solutions were soaked in that weak caustic environment. And to me, the various components on the shop radish seem to have been broken down, or as they opened up gravitationally magnetically very quickly in that caustic environment, where we can see where that mixed white-brown area has really spread out to the outer edges of that zone, whereas the plasma radish, it's maintained itself still in the center. And by doing that, we're seeing more and more different layers. And that outer boundary on the plasma radish is really, really distinct and defined, to me indicating a very strong gravitational magnetic field of the plant as a whole, and may give an indication as well as to our longer shelf life. So that was the radish with the GANS against the shop radish. And then I did one for the radish, which was just grown in our environment. So we never added any plasma to this one. It was just grown amongst other plants where we had added the GANs, and they grew about 1.5 meters away from the other plants. And so there again, we can see the chroma of the plasma radish, that environment radish. There's close-up again of lots of different layers. And here I've compared the three. So we have on the left the plasma, the middle is the environment, and the third one being the shop. So when we look at the border area, we can see it's really, really distinct on the plasma. It is there on the environment radish, not as strong. And then on the shop radish, we only seem to have sort of the one outer band there. And then that white structure where we had seen very distinct in the middle for the plasma radish, the environment radish seems to have opened up a bit more. And then on the shop radish, it's really, really opened up. And so to me, it's showing how the plasma radish seems to, the plant seems to retain its integrity, even in that caustic environment, whereas the radish from the shop, if the structure of the plant is so weak, then that weak caustic solution has opened it up very, very quickly. So when I look at those three pictures, the plasma radish seems to sort of show very well-defined patterns, sort of high integrity, high strength, and vitality. Then I did the same thing with a lettuce. I thought try some other plant. So our lettuce is also grown with a plasma, and again I had to buy another lettuce from the shop. The lettuce, we treat our seeds differently in that because they're so small, we don't really soak them in. It's very difficult to soak them in water and then plant them. So we just plant our seeds normally, but during the 4-week period where they are in our grow table, we water them with the GANs while they are still starting to germinate, and throughout the growth period, we then add the GANs during that period of their growth. And you can see there's the chromos. The one on the left is the shop, and the one on the right is the GANs, cost lettuce. Again, very, very distinct and unique images produced. There's a close-up of the different bands. And again, we're seeing the forked effect and the interaction of the different layers there. Whereas on this cost lettuce, we have very defined boundaries like we've seen on the cost. So when I'm analyzing the shop lettuce, and then we just got the plasma to show, again, we see the inner zone, and then the next zone, sort of the white area extending into the orange layers. And then we have sort of the red area followed by the brown, creating the outer boundary. When I look at the plasma lettuce, we can see quite a few distinct layers. We have the center zone, and then we get a lighter brown. That's with that first red arrow, small arrow, and then we get the edge of the white zone. And then they say that white area is very well contained by the next lighter brown area. And we don't see any penetration into that next field strength layer, as we saw on the shop lettuce. And it's a very wide band. And then we also have a very well-defined boundary on that cost. So it was where we had just left the plant solution in the caustic with 1 hour. So I wanted to see what would be, if there would be any changes if we had left the plant solution longer. So I left those solutions for 3 days. So they were sitting in the caustic environment, and I did some more chromos. And now we can see on the left is the shop, and then on the right is the plasma costs. So what we've, I think, yeah, there we go there. This is the, when I look at the valuation, the shop cost letters. So the one on the left is the 1 hour, and the one on the right is 3 days. So to me, they're almost the same, very little difference between the 1 hour and 3 day, which tells me that the maggraph field strength of the plant structure was initially weak. So that caustic environment was able to weaken those bondings in that first hour, because there's very little change after the 3 day effect. But when we look at the plasma lattice of the 1 hour on the left and the 3 days, we start seeing some differences. What we're seeing is when you look at this brown, very wide brown band on the plasma cost on the 1 hour, this has seemed to be opened up after 3 days, because we're starting to see a lot more detail, a lot more structure in there, a little more layers. So again, that's telling me that there's extra time allowing the layers to separate more, so that caustic environment was able to open up a little more of the layers so that we could see. But we see the difference between 1 hour and 3 days. So again, it's showing me after 1 hour, really strong integrity of the plant material. And then even after 3 days, the structure has opened up a little bit more, but still maintaining its strong integrity. So it's showing to me the very strong gravitational field strengths of all those components within the letters. So there's just a bit of analysis on the 3 day one. You can see that the area on the left, which is the plasma cost, there's a very strong band, circular band there. Now this circular band is essentially what we're seeing on the shop letters after 3 days, how it's opened up, very weak structure, so it can move into the next layers of strength. And then we see here as well on the cost letters after 3 days, we've seen essentially how that the band on the right, the 1 hour, we don't see a lot of detail on the brown, but on the 3 days, we start seeing some more detail, different layers, interactions there. So again, that structure has opened up after the 3 days. And when you look at the outer bands there on the shop cost letters on the left, very little definition there. And then on the plasma, again, we've seen very strong outer boundary for that plant. So when we look at the two, to me, it's I can see the integrity and the strength of the produce grown with the plasma, the magnetic gravitational field strengths of the cells, the amino acids, and the proteins remain intact and are not opened up by that weaker caustic solution. Whereas on any of the shop produce that we've seen, how that the structure had opened up very, very quickly. And we see a lot more detail as we open them up. So when I look at the overall analysis, there's the one on the left is the plasma radish, and the one on the right is the plasma cost. So you see very well defined patterns, structures, a lot of detail of layer, a very strong outer boundary, which to me indicates a very strong, healthy, and vitality of the plant. The plants have a stronger gravitational magnetic field strength, which may account for the higher nutrition and shelf life that we always see in the produce. As I say, these pictures show a very nice uniform structure and order. To me, these pictures may also indicate the emotion state of the plant, as in the work done by Masaru Emoto, when he freezes water, showing the different crystalline formations of a person's emotion that is reflected into those ice crystals. Maybe the chroma images are giving us a glimpse into the emotional state of the plant world. Are we growing emotionally balanced plants using the GANs, and this emotional balance creates plants with higher nutritional levels? The plants are happy to give and be the best that they can be. Further study will be needed to sort of identify and analyze what the different layers are actually, such as what minerals or proteins or amino acids they are reflecting. This work is my interpretation using the principles and understanding of plasma science technology, and it may or may not lead to further work in this direction. The images of the produce grown with the GAN certainly tell a story. How we interpret that story maybe needs some more work. And just to end off, what we'd also seen in keeping our jars of the plant material for a couple of days and sometimes weeks is we've noticed quite a distinct difference. The two bottles, one on the left is the shop radish, and the one on the right is our environment radish, and it was the same for the plasma radish. Now we can see in the bottle on the right being environment radish and the plasma radish, all our plant material had settled to the bottom, and we had this green color on top, and there's no smell from it even weeks later. But the shop radish, you can see we've got a very distinct, all the plant material had floated to the top, not sunk to the bottom, again showing a much weaker structure. And this started growing mold, and when you opened up the bottle, the smell from this was rather putrid. And this to me also just showed an indication of the noticeable differences between the produce grown with the plasma and that without. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'm sure you can tell us whether this belongs on a scrap heap or we try again, Mr. Keshe. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. Are you there, Mr. Keshe?
Yes, I'm listening. I took some pictures of this. It's very nice. It is, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. We expect a lot of things. Why and how things change is because we change the field areas outside. So we change the cache comes because we have changed the environment in this area. And that in turn has created a new dimension of positioning within the structure of the cells. There's a picture which I took while Jim was going through it. If there's anybody else asking any questions, please go ahead. Do you have any other questions with you?
Well, I had something to show that's related to this. Perhaps I can insert that. You want to look for a picture in the background for a minute?
Yeah, no, it's Jim, can you go back up on your pictures to the green one? Go back up to the green. More. A little bit more. More. I think it's just a couple of pictures.
Yeah.
Further up. The green picture. There's one picture which is green color.
Oh, that one?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Just 1 second, please. If you look at the structure here, what we call a honeycomb, and if you look at this structure, it's all the way through the same. If you look at the structure of the skin of the man, is the same. If you look at the structure of the kidney, is the same. And what these shape mean, and when you introduce ganses outside, you change the dimension of these shapes. Means you change the dimension, the size of the magnetic gravitational fields in these. Where we see the body, the structure, the physical structure, is where the magnetic gravitational field has changed to the matter state. And you see, for example, in one place, they have a uniform shape. You can see it here in this band. These spaces, these what you call hollow spaces, in them is not hollow, is the gravitational magnetic fields, which this, for example, if I can change it to a different color, this here dictates the size of this and dictates what this can bring in, and then this bracket here decides what needs to be filtered to go further in. And then you see again another filter band here. At the point of every change, we see uniformity in the size. We look at the structure as honeycomb, but in fact the empty space is where the plasma sits. The pressure that plasma can accept allow physicality in its boundary. And we see the boundary of the cell. And this is how we look, more or less. A lot of them are hexagonal or follow near enough that shape, where the balances are in a 6 field dimension, which in the science of man we do not understand yet. Because we are looking at a cross section. There is another half to this on the other side which has been cut. So this is like those magnets which we put together on the floor, the ring magnets. This is exactly the same thing. But because it's hexagonal, it creates different condition. This is in one of my lectures, private lectures years ago. I explained this, that if mankind, if us ever produce hexagonal magnets, like the way it happens in the universe, as now we learn the ring magnets, we will see a new dimension in the science of man. We will understand a new concept in technology, very much reality in the dimension of the plasma. When we look at a plasma as a circle, this is the whole structure of the system. as a ring. But if we position enough magnets, we will see hexagonal combination. If you leave them to find their own position. But if we ever manage to create a hexagonal magnet, we will see the operation of the plasma in a physical dimension. And teaching of science conversion from plasma to fields to matter, as I call. You have a plasma, you have a field, and then you have the matter state. Then we will understand this. Then we become more in a dimension of reality, and we can see how cells perform. And in a way, if we ever manage to make a um, hexagonal 3-dimension magnets, then we will see a different field difference. And collectively, then we can understand how the body of the man works, how the body of the live entities work. And this is if you take a cross section of every living entity, you observe this condition. And depending how compact they are and how they are closer to the center, the shape becomes more regular, more what you call homogeneous in size. And they usually become homogeneous at the point of change. And when you introduce plasmatic magnetic field, then the whole ball game changes. And it is fantastic to see this, because you take any cross section of any tissue, you will see this. So we always look at the boundary of this, but in fact we have to look at the plasma inside it. The field strength inside it, which creates that push, creates that boundary. And that field, at a point of interaction with other field, at a point of balance, they create a matter state. So if you look at it this way, I try to clean up my mess a little bit, that you can see better. Oh my God, the rubber is very good. Okay, so what I'm trying to explain is, when we look at the boundary here, is when the gravitational magnetic field from center of this and center of this have come to reduce from field to matter state, have created that. These are what we call in the science of plasma, subplasma levels. This is all made up. These space gaps just don't create as a space. These are all plasma fields which create, and the condition of what they allow to cross them in the space gap. Here you see them next to each other, but there is a space gap. In that space gap, the energy can come to here. And this could be of a different strength. And at this level, by absorbing all the fields here, then there is a space gap here. What can go through? In a scientific language, we call this one frequency. But here is plasmatic frequency, if you call it plasmatic energy, that it can get through. And what is created here in reaction and in condition to this side, it creates the size of the cell. But when you see the size of the cell, this cell has a center of energy. It's there, sits there. It's the soul of it.
And what it radiates in balance, in interaction with others, creates the matter state. This is on its own, even this partition has life. Because it has to hold on to and get connected to the next. If one day mankind go further in depth and we have machines to do it, you see this is a living thing. This here follows the same structure of field. And then this we
We've lost your audio, Mr. Keshe. We see a line that you're making. Still not hearing you. Still not able to hear Mr. Keshe.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
now we do.
You can hear me, okay. It's very strange how this thing happens. I can hear you, but you cannot hear me. This says upload or download, which is weak. Okay. Hello?
Yes, now you're clear.
Now I'm clear, okay. Now I'll switch to another one. So we see this structure even in the universe, but in a larger dimension. You see this structure in galaxies.
Mr. Keshe, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just that if we look at the structure of the universe, we see the same. If you look at the structure of the planetary system, we see the same. In the universal dimension, we still see hexagonals between the galaxies, position of the galaxies, and position of the field environments, which we are not aware of. We haven't got the technology to observe yet. And interesting enough, in time, when we understand this, in certain points in the universe, we can colonize. We can live, because dimension of physicality has certain strength is at the balance fields of the physical life of the man. And it's very interesting to see this, because it's a repetition of the same structure, the same process, and one way or another, life, as we call magnetic field balance, repeats itself, because it cannot be any different.
Mr. Keshe, I've got an image of the inside of the artery that maybe you could comment on. It's exactly what you've been talking about. You allow me to share that if it doesn't knock you out.
Oh, I get knocked out very easy. It's just if I'm off on my phone, get excited, then I'm really out.
Here,
Okay,
let's try
carry on.
an experiment here. There we go. So you're talking about ring magnet, and you were talking about, we were looking at the images that Jim was showing there, which are very similar actually to this. This is the inside of an artery, the aorta artery. And you can see the different layers and the folding, that kind of, the in-between layer there that seems so important.
Oh yeah, it's all the same. Technically, the universe is made the same way. But if you open this further, you will see the same pattern. It's a magnetic field space gap, what we call MAGRAV spacing.
It even has somewhat of a hexagonal shape, actually, as well around the outer edges. You can see here, and then along here, and back up there.
It's all the same. It's all the same. It depends how it is. You have to understand, as I always say, a magnetic field can only open, a plasma can only open as much as its environment allows it to. And why there's a hexagonal? Why majority of it is hexagonal? Because if you look at it, we call it in English a North Pole. You have a North Pole, you have a South Pole. The same. North Pole and South Pole. North Pole and South Pole. The field balance forces between the three forces the hexagonal shape to be part of the life. Physical structure. We call it diamond structure. We can force these to be created. We call it in our technology graphene when it comes to carbon. But a graphene you can create from any cell. One of the reasons when you make the ganses and when you put your plates in, I always tell you to put 2 electrodes of the meter on either side and just connect them, is to create this condition, homogenize one after another, because here you have the north of another one, and here another cell has a south of. And when you get north and north together, you create a separation till it can create another dimension to the 6. This is how we connect cells to each other in the life. You don't see this in stones. This is the characteristics of the living entities in the universe. Dynamic living entities. They give and they take. But you have to understand, this is another hexagon connected to the other. This is a 2-dimensional. And this balance is the essence of creation. Because what I don't need here, I can give here. But through the same setter point, I gives here. If you look at the structure of the graphene or a diamond structure of the plasma, which is on the influence of other field forces, enforces a hexagonal shape. Unless there is extra pressure, you might see it one missing. But that again, in the dimension of the fifth element, actually is like this. Fine is a space, or it creates a condition. You see it in all of these.
Sometimes you see the fifth one is sort of fuzzy, going on its fifth, it's sort of in between 5 and 6.
Because we are looking in one direction.
Right.
If you look into a 3-dimension, you see different.
Mm-hmm.
You see this very clearly if you do the nano coating over 60 days. Then you see the space gap. You do, if you when you make a nano coating nowadays, you just you got a black surface you're happy with. If, as I said, you allow it to grow and you look into the surface, you see this kind of positioning of the what you call nano elements inside, because they're hanging, they're not connected. If you've done a long-term GANS, what they call it, nano coating, you see it very, very clearly.
Good morning, Rick. Is this a normal specimen? You got a picture from Vicky?
Yeah.
Why are you asking that?
Because I want to know if we select another person and we give them IV of CO2 for 1 week, and we take a specimen like this, how would it look like? What would be the change of the artery of person who took a CO2 for a week in terms of the IV? Just like the one Jim showed, the one with the plasma, water, the seeds, and one without the plasma. So we can check this in the terms of.
I think you just talked yourself into an experiment, Azar.
I'm just wondering what would
you are a doctor, right? And maybe
yes.
You can get pictures like this, have them done. Of course, it's a little hard to take a cross section of the aorta because they cut it out of the aorta. It's kind of a one-shot deal in a way. You can't do it from week to week really, unless they could take a picture, which would be different. This would be a slice that they stain and put on a slide or something like that. But it's an interesting idea because one of the main issues in mankind for health and longevity is in the arteries, and the narrowing of the arteries is one of the main problems. And it ends up being a little hole, just like that tiny center hole that Mr. Keshe made there. That's about how big the arteries get when they have severe case of narrowing of the arteries. I was going to ask Mr. Keshe about that in relation to what we're speaking of here now. What is narrowing of the arteries, or the buildup of that? I assume that middle layer, that insulating or in between layer, it seems.
It's the same. They create a condition that the gravitational magnetic field of a protein can be added to. This is just a gravitational magnetic field strength from the heart changes. And so you get sediments, you create new condition, a new cell. Any other questions?
Mr. Keshe, I have one question.
Yes.
Regarding
You
Can-
have 2 phones open.
do I have to? No.
You do, Mr. Keshe, actually.
Do
You
I?
have to-
Oh, I'm the
you have to
guilty
mute-
party.
You have to
Oh, it
mute
just
one
came
of
on
you.
its own.
It's your twin.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. Mr. Keshe, the gentleman from UK asked about the energy in the hand. Like when you get the energy in the hand and you can manipulate it in a way that like you can become like a ball, like a circulating ball, and it moves. You can actually make it clockwise, counterclockwise. You can move it out, bring it back. You can play with it. So what can we do with that? What is the reason for it? I mean, because I can create it now, because it used to be energy in the hand. Now I can, if I want, I can sit and I can create 2 balls of energy moving, and I can make it counterclockwise, clockwise. I can send it out, get it back, move it between 2, but I cannot send it to other part of my body, but I can move it between 2 hands. I mean, this is different from just feeling the energy. It just now is out, and it can separate from the body, it can go out and come back. I can send it to a plant, and then I can get it back from the plant. Mr. Keshe, did we lose you?
I think he's just reconnecting there now, Azhar. Mr. Keshe, we can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. So I'm just juggling between 2 systems. Which one works? I go through it. System. The system is very simple. If you can get 6 hands together, or you can make the shape of your hand in a 6-sided form, 3-dimensional, you should be able to see a structure.
You mean I can make, I can vision, I can create 6 hands with 6 balls?
When you make the space reactors, flight systems, you see these shapes. A combination of field forces in a star formation leads to creation of a structure copy of this. If you look at it, if you look at the structure, is a hexagonal inwards. The space outside makes it flat looking, but in fact, it is exactly the same. When you make a 3-dimensional, when you make a matter state space system, you create a structure like this. on 3 layers. The space reactors is not that you have one layer of fields. You have layers of fields which make the body of the craft. It's the same. If one day man opens and cuts, you can get it into physical dimension, you can see through it. You see the same structure. But as it's dynamic and so much, you see it like the body of the man, it looks like a flat surface. How tight you can make it by different strength in respect to its position. You create a field barrier that you cannot be penetrated. It's very much you make a bone out of the same lymph, or you make a skin out of the same. A lymph, it transfers energy. It doesn't itself become a matter state.
Well, Rene had an interesting question in that regard earlier. He said in the Q&A, if we use only the information of the GANs itself, for example, if we store the information in water, then we are no longer in the matter state, I think. Can you confirm this? Thank you from Austria. So I think you, in a way, just confirm that. You talked about the energy is transferred, and on that
What
level,
does that mean?
It's not matter level state things that are going on. If you can see the energy transfer or the information transfer, and that's all you see, then you're no longer in the matter state. Would that not be correct? You're no longer thinking in the matter state.
In so many ways, you don't see. If you look into the skies, especially at night, when there is not so much field forces of the sun, which is continuously changing, is more stable, you see universal magnetic fields. It's very, very clear. You see in the physical language, we see air tunnels, they put the aircraft in it, the corridors we call it. If you look into the sky and you have the trained eye to see, most of us can do, we see fields in the depth of the space. It's most probably millions of kilometers. And you can see it, you can see transfer of fields across, the motion of fields across, and then where you see the difference in the field strength, then you see the boundary of the fields. Look into the skies in clear nights, you see it, because the light from the galaxies or the stars shows them, the reflection of the light through them, you can see. And at that point of interaction, the change, you see again the whole structure of the field flow. It's like the rivers in the ocean. And if you train your eyes to be able to see in depth, you can say more or less what is the star and what not the star. A lot of what we consider as the stars are not stars. Amazingly, they are not stars. And if you look into the depth of the field motion of them, it shows you, it tells you. As I said, man has got used to considering with his short life that everything is a star in the universe. Yes, there are some planets or some stars, but there are huge satellites which has been there for, it says seconds in the life of the universe, but man says for 10,000 years, a million years, and they're there, they sit there. And strange enough, for the world of science assess them what they're made from, and this is the star, it could be life on it, but they don't see the life in it. But they communicate, they interact. And at the position, certain position, you see the point of interaction. It's like service stations, if you call it in common language.
Mr. Keshe, there's an article that just came out a couple of days ago in some of the science periodicals and so on, saying that for the first time, basically, mankind is starting to be able to detect these magnetic fields in space that are very subtle. They mention in this article, I can't show it, but we can quote a couple of parts of it. It's the professor of astronomy down in the States somewhere. He says there are very limited ways to study magnetic fields in space. He says our understanding of these astrophysical processes suffers from our poor knowledge of magnetic fields, and the little is known about them in large part because they are exceedingly difficult to study. So, they mention in this article that interstellar magnetic fields represents one of the final frontiers of astrophysics. And they're super important and they're all pervasive, and yet the scientists know actually very, very little about them. They've had a very difficult time to measure, and they have some really sophisticated processes now to be able to do that and subtract the field here and there.
We have a problem in the knowledge of man, and we have not learned to measure or detect the spectrum of plasmatic magnetic fields. This is where the knowledge is lacking. We have developed technologies which we can measure matter state plasmatic magnetic field, and we put them Teslas. In the 129 setup, the way the setup was set is plasmatic. You see, in all present, due to the lack of the knowledge of the man, there's nothing else with it. Do you want to give me a white sheet, then I don't have to go? Can I have a white sheet, please?
Yes, just a second.
We have the knowledge, but we never understood how to use the knowledge. Oh, you still got my last pictures. Can you expand your white sheet, white paper, please? It's very small. Hello, Rick?
Yeah, that's as big as it gets there right now for me. Maybe you can expand.
Okay, I expanded it. Okay, no problem. No problem. Can you? I cannot clean up, but can you clean up? Can you give me a white sheet? I have these pink writings on it. Okay, no problem. You see, we see these magnetic fields flow. Caroline sees them very nicely. You know, when we stand, you watch the skies, we see it. She's got a very good eye for these things. This is the field. The reason we have not managed to, or the knowledge of man has not brought us to the point of understanding, is when we came to 129 Tesla, yeah, the detectors sit like this. We have a detector here, we have a detector here. The present time, we just put a detector here and see what it comes. In fact, to understand the rivers, or what I call, of the plasmatic field, we need to put a detector on the other side of the motion too. Then we have a technology. Then we can measure. Then we know which way is giving what measurements. Here we measure magnetical in respect to here. Here we test the gravitational in respect to here. And then we understand and we can measure. And it's very, very minute. We have the technology, but at the moment we only measure one direction. If you make a system sticking like this with a hole here and a hole here and connect them the two together, then we have a plasmatic field system. Because the balance of the two will give us the, what they call, mass ratio of the fields. We can, and then we can even detect what is the field strength here or field strength here. And this will explain a lot of things, and we can do everything. We never ever considered magnetic field to be the reverse or return of the gravitational field. If we do that, this is called a plasmatic measurement. We measure the strength of the plasma. We have all these satellite programs. They show us the gravitational field, the strength of the Earth. We have all these things. They tells us the magnetic field, but nobody has ever connected to, because we never understood they're of the same circle. Depends where you are. And then we can develop beautiful plasmatic fields in the universe. We got to see what we receive on one side of the spaceship, what we give on the other side of the spaceship, and then we find the field, the strength in what we produce. Do we want to be on this side to go that way, or do we want to be on this side to go that way? And where is our balance? And then where is the highest field difference, that we, what the speed we want to go, in the middle or on the edge? If you look at the structure of those cross sections we just saw, it follows the same. But because it has a soul, the field flow of the magnetic fields is internal. If you look at the body of the man, it's the same. But because of the copper content, the body has a split. And then it has connected itself. And the structure is very simple. We can measure, we have ignored, we never understood that it's a balance of the two fields. And one is stronger and one is weaker. And when we measure using the system we have in the lab, which we measure magnetic field, there are two detectors. There is one for the strong and one is for the weak. And those knowledge seekers who use this system, they know what I'm talking about. Depends where you are, you decide, and the difference, the two readings you get, the difference is your plasma field strength. It took me months to design these detectors. And they work on two different scales. You have to adjust it. When you adjust the tool, you get the balance of plasmatic field strength. And then you say, at this point, this is the field strength in this river of ocean of fields. I want to be there. And then you can dictate and decide. And when man develops, you don't have system machinery, then you look at the structure of the hexagons. They give you a very good indication. How close you are, how far you are, if you're in the strong flow, if you're in a weak flow. If you cut that cross section of the plant, it gives you all the knowledge of the field transfer in the universe, more or less. The structure of the galaxies in the center of the universe are totally different than the structure of the galaxies on the edge of the universe. Totally different. Their effect is different, the power is different because of that field flow in the center. We are nearly reaching 4 hours. Any other question?
Well, there was a couple of other questions in the Q&A perhaps we could address, and Bente had a question as well, but it is getting on here and we should wrap things up. Maybe you could answer quickly Bente's question. How does the hydrogen structure change in regards to temperature and acidity of ocean and the Cohen structure? And does that also happen in space? And does this change in...
Can you repeat? Can you repeat?
Well, her questions are in reference to the 279th Knowledge Seekers Workshop, which would have been the last one. And she's asking about the hydrogen structure, the change in structure regarding the temperature, acidity of the ocean, and the Cohen structure. And does that also happen in space? And does this change in GANs of hydrogen structure or strength when hydrogen is alone?
Can you translate?
I guess she's wondering about the change of hydrogen structure by way of temperature and the acidity of the ocean, and that it changes into the GANs of hydrogen structure. I'm not clear what the actual questions are. Maybe she'll have to clarify a little better for next time. I can work with her on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, let's maybe wrap it up for now then.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Keshe?
Yes, Asa.
Last week, the teaching you had last week, can we, if it's possible, elaborate about it next week a little bit? Because I didn't get it. The only thing I got from it is less is more. Like the more we become less, the more we will receive. I mean, that was my the whole thing I got from it was like this. Like when you showed 100 plus 10, and then you showed 1 plus 1 plus 1. So if you can next week just open it up a little bit, that would be nice. If it's possible.
We will try, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got another marathon run teaching tonight, so
yeah, I think we
if
should
we finish it up, I've got another 5 or 6 hours of teaching, most probably tonight in a couple of hours.
Yeah, we had Mariners had her hand up in a question, but I just advise her to take it till next week, and we can address it then. Anything else you wanted to add, Mr. Keshe?
Not really. Thank you very much. Thank you for everything today. As I said, we hope the 13th today will be the end of wars, and a lot of people who are looking for it. And we hope we achieve our dream that our children live a life in a society where war was something mankind did, and we don't know. Would it be part of us that we want to forget, or become part of us that we know, but we never enter into that zone? And hopefully we see the beginning of end of wars. It's our wish, and I give all my support to both the Japanese Prime Minister in Iran and the Iranian leadership and American leadership to find senses in becoming the first nations to make peace part of the life of humanity. Thank you very much for today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keshe. And as we say, I am present in that wish.
I am present.
I am present.
I am present.
I am present.
Okay, thank you, everyone. This has been the 280th Knowledge Seekers Workshop for Thursday, June 13th, 2019. And we'll be broadcasting another workshop the same time and place next week for the Knowledge Seekers Workshop. And also have the One Planet, One Nation workshop coming up on Tuesday as per usual. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye for now.
Hello. We are the Keshe Foundation. Our mission is to bring peace on Earth and join humanity with the universal community. We wish and work to bring man as equal to all beings in the universe. By teaching plasma science and technology equally to everyone, no one is left out and no one is abused due to lack of knowledge. By donating to us, you can help achieve this goal. keshefoundation.org/donate.
Plasma products found at keshefoundation.org/store. Soothing, reusable plasma eye and migraine mask. Eliminate eye fatigue and relieve stress in eye area. European certified medical device. Massaging plasma insoles. Bring comfort back to your feet and energize your legs. European CE certified medical device. Antiseptic plasma liquid hand soap. Promotes well-being and relaxation with protective plasma formula. CE certified. One Soul Plasma T-shirt. GAN's formula within the symbols and stripes brings mind, soul, and body into balance. European certified. Pain Relief Pen. Emits a concentrated plasma field at point of pain, efficient up to 3 centimeters below the skin. CE certified. The Magrav's Energizer and Alkalizer raises pH and energizes water through magnetic and gravitational fields. CE certified medical device. Pain Relief Pad, a result of years of research in nanoplasma technology with magnetic and gravitational fields. CE certified medical device. Visit the online store at keshefoundation.org/store or find a distributor near you. Tax and shipping not included.